Over the past 8 months, Donald Trump's standing with Latinos, particularly Latino men and young Latinos, has collapsed. Amid sky high costs, a devastating trade war, and a stagnant labor market, Latinos are giving Trump failing grades for his focus on massive cuts to healthcare instead of fixing the economy. And while Trump shows weak leadership, it gives Democrats an opportunity to offer a strong alternative with policies and a message that actually resonate with Americans. So, to help break it all down, I'm thrilled to be joined today by Melissa Morales, the president of Somos Votantes, the largest organization working to increase Latino civic and voter engagement. I'm Hannah Moldavan, Deputy Communications Director for the Democrats, and your host for today. This is the Democrats' Daily Blueprint. Melissa, welcome to the Daily Blueprint.
Hello, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Now, you're the founder and president of Somos Votantes, which is a group that aims to educate Latino voters and increase their involvement as a key demographic in our democracy. Now, I know you've shared your story of your background and your career working in Congress and how it inspired you to launch Somos, but can you tell us more about why it's important that a group like this exists and what some of your biggest accomplishments have been in the past few years?
Absolutely. Again, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to have a platform to be able to talk about the Latino community, the work that we're doing, and the work that we know it's needed. At its core, Somos exists because Latinos, and of course many other communities, too often show up in political rhetoric, but not in political strategies. So in its founding, we knew that we needed an organization that didn't just count us, but counted on us by being rooted in Latino communities and lives. Something that I believe deeply, especially now, is that responding to the frustrations of everyday working people in this country, including Latinos, requires not incremental tweaks, but a boldness in vision and a boldness in scale, which is what our programs are based on. In the past, we've been really proud of the scale that we've been able to reach, mobilizing some of the largest Latino civic engagement programs in the country, reaching millions in Latino communities. But as we've shifted into this year, we've really gone beyond politics through programs like La Cosecha, which is our economic resource campaign. We've been able to support thousands of families in accessing the tools and opportunities that they need to build a good life, everything from groceries and gas cards to school supplies and healthcare resources, which of course are incredibly important right now, connecting civic engagement to real life relief. So for us at Somos, it's about going beyond political rhetoric and division and proving that democracy can be about showing up for people and community and not just showing up to vote.
I love that so much. Our DNC chair here, Ken Martin, talks about how when you engage with any community, if the first time you're engaging with them is when you ask for their vote, then you're doing something wrong.
Exactly.
And the idea about public service and genuinely caring about these communities, so showing up when it's not just time to vote in the elections, is really important. And I love to hear that you're doing that. And, I know that is not talking about the elections, but elections do matter as well, because that's where we're able to fight for the leaders that we want to represent us. So how is Somos Votantes preparing for the upcoming midterm election? So in 2026, what are some of the strategies and tactics that you focused on when it comes to elections?
Yeah, so this year we're really focused on building muscle as we head into next year. Our strategy related to not uniquely even the midterms, but to engaging our community in general is really grounded in two things: listening and delivering. We often talk about metrics related to how many people we've talked to. You hear about that a lot in campaigns. They talk to 1 million people, but way more underdeveloped is the muscle and our mechanism for listening and tracking what we're hearing, learning from it, and then figuring out how we're responding to what we're hearing. It's great to hear that Ken is aligned there, because it feels like every cycle we have to relearn that trust isn't built in a 6-week sprint. It's earned inch by inch every single day. That's why our focus is on being a year-round machine that listens and delivers, listening to what working families are actually worried about: cost, jobs, safety, and healthcare, and connecting those issues to the power of participation and expanding what civic engagement looks like. It's not just TV ads, as we know. It's school supply drives, resource fairs, local messengers who are trusted voices. And our programs are working as we think about how we are building trust in our community. This fall, our backpack giveaways and school supply drives were bringing in about 1,000 families per event. that's real and that's trust building. And when we link civic participation to real world outcomes, people see both us and eventually participation in democracy, not as a transaction, but as part of a broader movement for dignity and opportunity.
I think that's incredible that those events, even just as you described, giving school supplies and backpacks to families, something that kids will use every day when they go to school. And, this is, I think, based on this theory of community-based organizing, what you're talking about. What lessons do you think people can take away from your approach, whether it's to advocate for the Latino community or any community looking for greater representation?
Thinking about what I mentioned about trust and how we build trust, the biggest lesson is that trust is the real currency of change. Whether you're working with Latinos or any community, people don't want and aren't actually looking for perfection. They want presence. They want to know that you see them, that you understand them, that you understand their struggles, that you're fighting for something concrete that is actually making their lives better. That builds trust. And our approach at Somos has always been about building with people, not building for people, respecting their lived experiences, investing in their leadership, and translating big ideas into practical programs. So when we think about representation, it's not just about who's on the ballot, it's about who's being heard, who's being believed, who's being invested in. So in effect, Somos is living out the idea that we have to go bigger in that vision, not just in scale, but in imagination, offering a vision for the country that shows what's possible for working people, not just what's been or not just what's incremental, but what's possible. And we have to stop asking people, I think, to play a game of inches when they're telling us they need a Hail Mary, that they need us to go bigger, that they need big solutions. So we need to be thinking about what a broad, sweeping, bold vision for the future looks like in this country, a future for the country that people can actually believe in again. And I'd actually encourage all of us to think more like that.
Now, lastly, we've all read about electoral trends among Latino voters and how they swung right in 2024. Yet now Trump and Republicans have honestly seen their biggest drop in approval ratings among Latinos. I'm wondering what you're hearing from folks on the ground on what their top issues are and how you think Democrats should be addressing these concerns with Latino voters, particularly with some who might have supported Democrats in the past.
Absolutely. I think it's incredible that right now what we are hearing through all of our conversations in community are matching what we're seeing in our polling and our research. I think we actually just have our Q3 poll that came out, and in what can feel chaotic and unstable day to day. I always love talking about the research and the data to ground ourselves in something concrete. Headed into this year, we knew that we were standing in an unprecedented moment. I think not only in the story of who we are as an organization, who we are as a country, but also in the story of what it means to be Latino in this country right now. And so rather than assume or opine, again, we went back to let's listen. And we've engaged in a set of quarterly tracking polls that's meant to do just that. And what we are seeing in our latest poll is, as you know, a broader collapse of Trump's support amongst Latino voters. What began earlier this year with independents and with women has really deepened and spread to almost every subset of the Latino electorate, including groups that once leaned toward him, like Latino men. These men were once his strongest base within the Latino community. And earlier this year, we're honestly in a bit of a wait and see type of moment. And it feels like in this latest Q3 poll, we're seeing a corner turn there. He's now underwater by 10 points with Latino men on his handling of the economy, which was his strongest issue with them. Among young Latinos, it's even more dramatic. Trump's favorability is down more than 20 points since February. His economic approval has cratered by over 30 points. Independents are right there too, with his economic approval now sitting at minus 45, which is sort of an incredible cratering since the beginning of this year. And this really matches what we're seeing and hearing every single day from our community. Economically, Latino families are feeling the squeeze and they're connecting the dots. 7 in 10 Latinos in our latest polls say Trump's tariffs are raising prices on everyday goods. His economic approval was down 13 points in February, then 20 in May, and now sits 26 points underwater. That's 9 straight months of decline driven by broken promises, while families are continuing to face higher costs for food, gas, basic needs, all of the things that they have been worried about for a long time. So this isn't just a story about Trump's administration losing favor. It's about people losing patience, quite honestly. And finally, what I would say is while we observe that movement away from Trump, it is really important to recognize that this sort of erosion of support isn't automatically going to translate into support for Democrats either. We need solutions. I cannot stress enough how tired people are of the status quo. They were telling us this in their research. And the both sidesism that we were seeing from people is not a lack of recognition of the harm that Trump's administration is doing, but a recognition of a lack of action and solutions that they see as permeating small p politics. So I will end on a positive note. There is an opportunity here. This is a moment, if we're willing to grab it, a moment that demands courage and vision and leadership. And people are yearning for leaders who are willing to stand up for something. So we shouldn't squander that opportunity in this moment because it won't last forever.
Melissa, thank you for your courage and leadership. Your knowledge of those polls was incredible, and for providing that information to us today. We really appreciate you enlightening our audience here, and we hope to continue working with you as the months come. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Melissa, for joining us. And here at the Daily Blueprint, we're continuing to highlight Democratic candidates who are fighting for working families and who need your support to win. For today's segment that we're calling 60 Candidates in 60 Days Before the November Election, we want to spotlight Joanne Famularo, who's running to represent District 2 in New Jersey's General Assembly. Throughout her life, Joanne has worked to make Atlantic County fair and more affordable for families, and she continued that effort in the General Assembly. Her top priorities are protecting reproductive rights, supporting economic growth, and creating opportunities for everyone to succeed. So to make calls, knock doors, and volunteer with the Famularo campaign, check out their campaign Facebook page at facebook.com/Famularo2025. You can also find the link in our video description below. Thanks for joining us today for this episode of the Daily Blueprint. We'll be here with you every weekday at 10 a.m. Eastern on the DNC's YouTube page. Until tomorrow.